When people say they are lost, what they are truly admitting is they have never looked deeply within, out there. The streets, with countless turns, only reflect the labyrinths of the soul. But in stillness, if you pause, sit down, and dare to face the mirror, you will hear the whisper of the darkness. The path was never lost, it awaits you within. From this point of pause, the true journey begins, not outward, but inward. You say you are lost. I hear in those words not just an external reality, but the echo of a soul searching for itself. For the true path, the path that brings you back to your essence, does not lie on any map out there, nor is it measured by the turns you have taken. It lives within you, like an underground stream, and when you whirl through chaotic streets, it is because you have not yet recognized that stream. Being lost is an ancient experience. In Greek mythology, Persephone was pulled down to Hades, far from the sunlight, believing she was lost forever. But in that darkness, she became the queen of a new world. In the Bible, the prodigal son left his father, wandering into a foreign land, thinking he had lost everything, until he realized that returning was not about finding a house, but finding his own heart. I say to you, the feeling of being adrift, directionless, is not failure. It is a ritual. When the soul steps onto a new threshold, it often loses its old language. The streets you pass through are symbols. The tangled turns a vivid image of the unconscious calling you inward. Do you see that being lost is not a dead end, but a reminder, like a dream, where you suddenly find yourself in a strange city, without a map, without companions? This is not punishment. It is the soul challenging you. Dare to find the light within. Instead of endlessly chasing the streetlights outside, and I acknowledge your weariness. I acknowledge the emptiness. When you look around and find no anchor, but let me whisper, in the very moment you name your lostness, you have entered the journey. For in the language of the spirit, being lost does not mean absence, it means being summoned. Every path you tread in the outer world is but a mirror reflecting the path within your soul. When you say, I am lost, you are confessing that the inner map has never been drawn. And in that emptiness, you feel like a wanderer in a desert, walking endlessly without finding water. But look closer. The very path you are on, with its every turn, every dead end, is a symbolic language of the unconscious. It does not aim to lead you to a destination, but to force you to pause and ask, what am I avoiding within myself? The path is an ancient archetype. In Greek mythology, Theseus entered the labyrinths of the Minotaur, not to find an exit, but to find Ariadne's thread, a symbol of the connection between consciousness and the unconscious. In Taoism, the path is called the Tao, not a specific route, but the profound principle governing all things. When the Bible says, I am the way, it is not merely an invitation to follow, but a revelation that the human essence itself is the path. When you stand at a crossroads, confused about which direction to take, you are seeing the division within your soul. On one side is the persona, the mask you wear for the world. On the other is the shadow, the repressed, rejected part. The path does not force you to choose, but to recognize both are within you. And only when you dare to enter the darkness of the shadow will you find the light of the self. In analytical psychology, I have heard countless patients describe being lost in a city, a desert, a vast field, their dreams filled with paths leading nowhere. I tell them, do not seek the way out, look at the nature of the path. That path is telling you that you have lived too long looking outward, seeking answers in streetlights, in applause, while forgetting that the answer lies in the silence of the heart. The path, in its deepest sounds, never leads you astray. It twists, meanders, sometimes closes like a labyrinth to force you to realize you have never asked where you truly want to go. And that is the starting point of individuation. When the outer path becomes a symbol of the inner path, you begin the journey back to yourself. After winding roads, you pause before a mirror, not an ordinary mirror, but an ancient symbol, a door, opening to the depths of the soul. When you look into it, you see your own eyes, but they are not entirely familiar. They are you and yet not you. They carry something strange, the weariness, the longing, the fear you have buried. In the Red Book, I wrote, whoever looks outward dreams, whoever looks inward awakens. The mirror is a reminder. You have looked outward too long, seeking meaning in streets, in lights, in the eyes of others. Now, the mirror pulls you back. Look within yourself. You are not lost, for the true path lies beyond that reflection. In Greek mythology, the mirror is linked to Narcissus. He saw his reflection in the water, but did not recognize it as himself. Thus, he fell in love with an illusion. The difference here is, the mirror is not for you to become enamored with your image, but to recognize the unintegrated parts of yourself. That is the shadow, the rejected shadow. It appears in the eyes in the mirror, not to frighten, but to say, I am still here. I am the part you left behind. And the mirror also carries the hue of alchemy. In ancient texts, the mirror was seen as the speculum where the soul reflects its true nature. Like an alchemical experiment where dark metal is melted to reveal hidden light, the mirror brings you to Nigredo, the dark stage of the soul. There you face yourself in your rawest state, unadorned by social masks, unshaped by others' expectations. Many of my patients have recounted dreams of mirrors. Some see a cracked mirror, a symbol of a fracturing ego. Others see a stranger reflected the unrecognized anima or animus. Some see nothing at all, the emptiness of a soul veiled by the persona. But in all cases, the mirror is an invitation. Dare to look. Even if the reflection makes you tremble, you, standing before the mirror, may want to turn away, but remember, in the moment you turn your back, you turn away from your essence. The shadow does not vanish because you ignore it. It waits, growing stronger, but when you dare to look, when you let your eyes meet the eyes in the mirror, you truly begin a dialogue with the soul, and then you will hear the whisper, you were never lost. I, the shadow, we have only waited for you to recognize me so we can walk together. The mirror, therefore, is not the end of being lost, but the opening of transformation. It is a door. Pass through it. And you enter the forest of the unconscious, where all darkness and light are alive, where you find the past the outer world could never give you. It is a ritual mirror, a speculum leading you to the self, the center of the soul's wholeness. Thus, the mirror is not for adjusting your hair or face, but for looking straight into your essence. In those eyes, you see the hidden parts, and if you are brave enough, you will realize there is no lostness, only a call. Look within it. When you have dared to look into the mirror, you pass through it like a door, and beyond it opens the deep forest. This is not a geographical forest, but the primal forest of the unconscious, where every tree is a memory, every leaf a symbol, and every shadow a part of your soul you have yet to touch. In that forest, sunlight filters through the leaves, flickering, half light, half dark. It is an image of the soul, not yet home, always oscillating between consciousness and unconsciousness. You hear the wind, but also faint whispers, the language of archetypes, echoing from the collective unconscious. Ancient cultures knew the forest as a symbol of initiation. In Norse mythology, Odin hung on the tree Yggdrasil for 9 nights to gain wisdom. In Grimm's fairy tales, the lost child must enter the forest before maturing. And in alchemy, Silva, the forest is where the opus, the work of transformation, begins. Thus, the forest is not danger, but a rite of passage. But you, stepping into the forest, and feel fear. You see no clear path, only thickets, shadows, and invisible eyes watching. I say, do not fear. Those eyes are not enemies, but parts of you left behind. They are the darkness, the shadow, the anger, envy, weakness you have denied. They live in the forest, waiting for your return. The forest is also a symbol of the masculine and feminine, the figure appearing among the trees, sometimes as a lover, sometimes as a threat. These are the opposites within you. The feminine in a man, the masculine in a woman that, if unrecognized, keep you living half alive. Meeting them in the forest is a dialogue with the soul in many patients' dreams. I have seen the forest as a natural labyrinth. Some are chased through it. Others seek a home but get lost among the trees. All this says one thing: their soul has reached the moment to embark on the journey of individuation. For no one enters the forest and returns the same as when they entered. You may ask, how do I find the way in this forest? I reply, there is no ready path. The path is created as you dare to walk. Each step is an encounter with your own darkness. Each breath a reminder that this forest is yours. And as you go deeper, you will see, amid the darkness, a small light guides you onward. That is not light from outside, but from the self, the center of wholeness. Thus, the inner forest is not where you are lost, but where you are reborn. It is the journey of return, where the shadow ceases to stalk and begins to speak. And in that conversation, you will understand. You were never lost, only not yet brave enough to enter this forest. As you venture deeper into the forest, you hear the sound of flowing water. And then a river opens before you. It is unlike any river you have seen, vast, silent, your surface gleaming black, like an immense mirror stretching endlessly. You pause, you feel both drawn to it and afraid. This is not a geographical river. This is the river of the collective unconscious. In Ion and Symbols of Transformation, I have often pointed out that water is one of the oldest symbols of the unconscious. Water both nurtures and engulfs. It holds both life and death. And thus, the river in the forest is not just for looking at, but for reflecting in. As you bend down, the water reflects your face, but not only the face of today. You see your childhood with innocent eyes, yet filled with fear. You see the shadows of your parents, their words still echoing. You see unfamiliar, ancien faces, as if thousands of years of ancestors are gazing back at you. This is the moment you touch the collective unconscious, where humanity's memories and archetypal symbols live. Beyond the small ego, the river also recalls mythology. The Greeks called it Styx, the river marking the boundary between life and death. Whoever crosses it must change. The Indians called it Ganga, the sacred river that purifies sins. In the Bible, water is both the flood of destruction and the baptism of redemption. Every tradition knows water is not just matter, it is a symbol of transformation. You may want to retreat, for the dark water seems to pull you in. But remember, if you do not look, you will never see what remains hidden. The darkness in the water is the unintegrated shadow. But if you let your gaze merge with the surface, you will see a faint glimmer reflecting the sky. That is the sign of the self, the light of wholeness present even in the deepest darkness. Many of my patients have dreamed of standing before a river. Some fear it, unable to cross. Others dive in and are submerged. Some wade through and reach a new land. I explain, this is a dream of transformation. The river is not an enemy, it is a ritual. It forces you to leave the old shore, the familiar ego, to cross to the other side, where the ego is reborn. When you stand before this deep river, no, you are not lost. You are on the right path. For the inner journey always leads to the water, the source of the unconscious. And there you will see that being lost is but a small ripple, while beneath, the current always knows its way to the ocean of the soul. You have passed through the forest, gazed into the river of the unconscious, and now, as you step out from the trees, a blazing red light bursts before you, a fire flickering in an ancient furnace. This is not ordinary fire, but ignis, the alchemical fire, described by medieval sages as the divine power hidden within matter. In alchemy, fire is the element of transformation, burning away the old shell to reveal the pure essence. Every spiritual journey passes through fire. In Nigredo, the soul darkens, decays. In Albedo, it is purified, whitened. And in Rubedo, the final stage, it becomes red, the divine jewel, immortal gold. The fire before you is a symbol of Rubedo, the union of darkness and light, the finite and the infinite. You fear, for the fire seems to want to consume you. But remember, there is no rebirth without burning. The phoenix in Eastern and Western mythology must die in flames to rise from ashes. Moses saw the burning bush unconsumed, a soul illuminated by divine fire. The Buddha, before enlightenment, passed through the fire of suffering to find the middle way in stillness. Fire, in every tradition, is always a symbol of sacred transformation. In psychology and alchemy, I pointed out that the alchemical fire is a metaphor for the psychoanalytic process. When you dare to face the darkness in the unconscious, you are melting the ego. And in that pain, new light can emerge. This is why many patients in therapy feel as if they are being burned, because masks, defenses, and the old persona are collapsing. But in that fire, they find the self, the immortal center. You stand before the furnace, feeling the heat spread. You may want to flee, but remember, running is returning to the old path, back to the forest, repeating the cycle. Only by stepping into the fire do you enter a new phase. The fire will not destroy you. It burns only what does not belong to your essence. It takes away the false shell to reveal the true core in the unconscious. This fire is a symbol of conjunctio oppositorum, the marriage of opposites. Here, the shadow and light, masculine and feminine, life and death, the personal ego and collective unconscious all melt and merge. This is the moment the soul becomes one, no longer fragmented, no longer lost. I remind you, stepping into the fire is not an outward act, but an inner decision. When you dare to sit with your darkest dream instead of fleeing, when you dare to write down your most painful memory instead of burying it, when you dare to look into the eyes in the mirror without turning away, that is, when you step into the fire. And the fire, in its mystery, will not consume you, but will return to you a transformed essence. You will emerge from the fire like the phoenix rising from ashes. You will see you are no longer a lost wanderer, but a traveler who has found the path. For the path, from beginning to end, was never lost. It only waited for you to be brave enough to pass through darkness, river, and fire to return to the self, to the light of wholeness. Now you have journeyed through the depths of the soul, the dim path. The reflecting mirror, the primal forest, the river of the unconscious, and the chemical fire, each stage is a ritual, each symbol is a secret language of the soul. And you have bravely entered instead of fleeing. So where do you stand now? Not at an end, but at the threshold of a new beginning. I say, this is the start of individuation, the journey your entire life is truly calling you to. You once believed you were lost, but the truth is, the past was never gone. It was there, within you, waiting for you to dare to look inside and see. In Ion, I wrote, the shadow, when rejected, leads to destruction. But when recognized and integrated, it becomes the foundation of wholeness. In psychological types, I pointed out that introversion is not turning away from the world, but opening the inner door where the self, the whole I shines. And in the Red Book, I let the soul speak. Whoever looks outward dreams, whoever looks inward awakens. All that you have passed through is living proof of those words. Imagine the mirror you looked into no longer reflects a stranger, but all of you, light and darkness, persona and shadow, anima and animus. Imagine, the forest is no longer a menacing labyrinth, but a sacred garden where archetypes no longer threaten but become allies. Imagine, the river of the unconscious is no longer a dark abyss, but a cool spring where you can drink and be reborn. And imagine, the alchemical fire is no longer a fear of consumption, but a light that guides, warms, and transforms your soul into the gold of the spirit. This is the invitation. Step into the process of individuation. It is not an abstract theory, but a living practice. Each day, when you write down your dreams, you are listening to the language of the unconscious. Each time you dare to face fear instead of denying it, you are integrating the shadow. Each time you recognize in others the form of anima or animus, you are enriching your essence. And each time you sit in stillness, looking into the mirror, you are taking another step toward the self. I say to you, individuation is not about becoming a perfect version demanded by society. It is about becoming yourself whole, complete with both light and darkness. In that wholeness, you will see something wondrous. You were never lost. What you called lostness was merely the soul's way of guiding you home. Like the wanderers, In every miss, you had to leave home, enter darkness, pass through trials, to finally realize that home was always within you. As you leave the alchemical fire and step into the dawn's light, you see before you not a strange path, but the very path you have walked from the start, now illuminated. The ground beneath your feet has not changed, but your eyes have. And thus, every step you take from now on is no longer lostness, but participation in a sacred journey. So I invite you, keep going. Write down tonight's dream. Sit before the mirror once more. Dare to enter the forest when it calls. Bend down to the river and let the light reflect. Sit in the fire and let it transform you. And above all, trust that in all these moments, the true path is never lost. It is you. You are not lost. You have only just begun to look within